Did you know, as part of its world-class value management platform, ecosystems can build value realization capabilities directly into your product or service itself, allowing it to not only calculate, but also communicate realized value directly with customers on an ongoing real-time basis, all without any human intervention at all. With Eco Inside, value realization isn't just about your product, it actually is your product. Find out more on our website at ecosystems.io. And now, on with the breakdown. I've been thinking a lot lately about the concept of customer centricity. It's something that we all want, we all talk about. We have initiatives around it, whether we want to be customer obsessed or put the customer at the center of everything we do or build a customer 360 organization. One way or another, there's no question that we're all focused on maybe we should actually focus on what customers want and delivering that to them. And we've made some progress in a lot of different ways. I think the emergence over the last several years, for example, of a customer experience function really focused on how does our customer experience our organization? How can we make that experience better, more delightful, easier for them? Makes a ton of sense. On the sales side, we see a lot of focus right now on things like customer outcomes. How can we make sure that we understand the outcomes that our customers are trying to achieve and map our solutions to those outcomes such that they see a close tie between what we've helped them with and what they ultimately are trying to do? What happens, I think, in a lot of this work around customer centricity, all with very good intentions, is that it nonetheless tends to fall back through this gravitational pull towards supplier-centric initiatives. So it's I've talked about this in other videos already, right? It's enough about me now. What do you think about me? So it's like it's sort of supplier centricity and customer centricity clothing. It's a thin veneer of focus on customer, but really what we're trying to do is get them to buy more of our stuff, which, by the way, is totally fair. That's ultimately what we all are trying to do. But I've been playing around with a framework around customer centricity that might broaden the scope and actually open up just hugely interesting and new opportunities for us to be more customer centric in a way that's just more helpful to the customers and ultimately, I think, to us. And I'd love to get your thoughts on it and feedback on it as we maybe can crowdsource this and build this out a little bit together. But the starting point, I think, of customer centricity and just being more customer centric, we need one sort of North Star. What's the one thing that we're all solving for that sits at a high enough altitude that all sorts of different activities and resource allocations and strategies and tactics could all be fit under that North Star? And if I think back to all the work that I've been involved in over the years at CEB, at Gartner, at Ecosystems, I think the number one thing that we could solve for is ease. Just how easy can we make it for customers to operate, to make a decision, to make a purchase, to just get things done. In fact, if you think about some of the really great work that we published in HBR, for example, under a title of the new B2B sales imperative, it was all about how do we make things easier for our customers around decisions that they're making. If you think about the work that my friends Matt and Nick and Rick wrote about in the book, The Effortless Experience. It's all about in customer service. How can we make things easier for our customers? And there's all sorts of reasons why, the data I've seen around the commercial return on making things easier for your customer makes a ton of sense. But that's, I think, where a lot of us are playing. However, here's the framework that I've been experimenting with, which I think opens up all sorts of new surface area to make things easy. Let's make a foursquare, because everything in life can be, of course, boiled down to a foursquare. In this case, I think that the two axes of the foursquare are these. So maybe across the horizontal axis is maybe supplier-centric in the first column, but then in the second column, rather than being customer-centric, let's make it supplier-agnostic. So we have these two columns, supplier-centric and supplier-agnostic. And then down the vertical axis, let's think about two different dimensions here around doing, and then maybe, surprisingly, a dimension around feeling. So doing and feeling, supplier-centric, supplier-agnostic, doing and feeling. I'm still debating whether there's a knowing row or not, but four squares are so much better than 9 boxes, right? Or 6 boxes. So let's kind of think through this and briefly, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. But so the first quadrant, maybe up in the top left, would be then supplier-centric and doing. So this is all the things your customers do with you. And I think in many ways, this is where most of CX, I say this with huge respect because some really great work done here. Most customer experience kind of resides here traditionally, which is let's map out all the touch points where our customers interact specifically with our company, our brand, our community, and let's figure out how to make those touch points easier, more efficient, maybe reduce the number, whatever it is. Let's fix the touch points. Let's fix the way that our customers act or do things with us, supplier-centric around doing. Then, and if you go down in that column, so bottom right would be supplier-centric around feeling. And that's, I think, the world of marketing. What do our customers feel about us, our brand? What are the values that we put out in the world such that they see a connection across those things? And again, it's very much about how do you feel about us, right? And again, really great work there. So I want to be super careful that I don't sort of denigrate that somehow. But then you get over in this other column. The other column is not supplier-centric or customer-centric, but supplier-agnostic. And think about doing there. And then your mind kind of explodes into all these different dimensions of things that we could do to solve for ease. Because remember, that's our North Star. How do we solve for ease? And you might think here, it's like, how do we solve for ease around the things that customers have to do that have nothing to do with us? And that would be working with their colleagues, building consensus, getting things. This is where I think a lot of frame making begins to have a really interesting impact. That article I mentioned about the new sales imperative is about being more prescriptive with your customers, helping them figure out information and which information matters most. We wrote about that in Harvard Business Review under this article called Sense Making for Sales. And then there's this bottom right quadrant, which is something I've been talking a lot about lately, which is supplier agnostic, but also about feeling. And I think that's where more than anything else, that's where this idea of customer confidence resides, right? So how can I help customers feel more confident, not so much in us, but in themselves and their ability to make large-scale decisions on behalf of their company? And that's where all the different dimensions I've talked about in past videos about frame making really at least bubble up initially, and then I think they spread out across all the other dimensions of this four-square as well. But if you think about sort of being more customer-centric or customer-obsessed, let's obsess on not just what they do with us, but what they do in general, and not only what they do, but also what they feel. And I think for each one of those quadrants, then you can begin to explore all sorts of interesting opportunities for how you create really powerful experiences for your customer, partly with you, partly through you, partly just because of you, from their own perspective, how they feel about themselves. That can be so powerful. This, by the way, I think is where a lot of us, including us at Ecosystems, think so much about community today. I think community really has its heart and soul down in the bottom right, which is irrespective of us. How can we change the way that customers feel, not about us, but feel about their ability to go on a journey that maybe leads back to us? And so let's create opportunities for them to go talk to others, and through social proof and through connections to people that they see as similar to them, they feel more confident to take a course of action, hopefully one that leads, again, back to our unique strengths. So when you think about, but all that's four squares, and that's a lot of complicated stuff in each of those four quadrants. And so that's where I think it really makes sense to come back to, like, what's the North Star? And the North Star simply can't be more customer-centric or be more customer-obsessed, because I don't know what that means, right? There's so many false positives that are built into those monster nouns. And so I think just sort of tactically, the thing to solve for is solve for ease.